What's up guys, it's Z here, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. Today we're doing a deck profile for Red Eyes. A lot of people have requested it, and for good reason. With Maze of Memories, we did get a new card, and it feels like it has been ages since this deck got new support, other than stuff like that were mainly meant to be played in Dark Magician, like Dragoon of course. But yeah, we're still waiting for another card, and we're going to update it once this card is released. The card I'm referring to is Red Eyes Black Meteor Dragon, but unfortunately we still don't have any confirmation on when this card is going to be released. But I know a lot of people don't really want to wait until we get that card as well, because we did get Red Eye Soul in Maze of Memories, so they're trying to see exactly how this deck can be playable. And the thing about Red Eyes is that, similarly to Blue Eyes and Dark Magician, it's a very fun favorite deck that Konami is going to keep rating support pretty much till the end of time. But the thing is, unlike those other two decks, the deck has never been something like even competitively viable. The other two decks, they have had their time and they're still to this day kinda decent, but Red Eyes, I feel like it's the deck that is missing the most pieces. But the deck has one good thing going for it, and that's that they are all Dark Dragons, which arguably these are the best types and attributes for the entire game, so we can use a lot of different generic support cards we have though for this specific type and attribute to try to make a cohesive deck. So before we begin with the video, if you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming content, and now let's get to the deck profile. So starting off the monsters, we have one copy of Red Eyes Black Dragon. Now until we get Meteor Black Dragon, I feel like this card needs to be at 1 because it doesn't really do much. When we have Meteor Black Dragon, which is basically the equivalent of Magician's Souls for the deck, because we're going to need more targets to send from the deck to the graveyard to special summon it, that's when Red Eyes is going to become more important, so we can have targets for it. But for now, Red Eyes is mainly here for Red Eyes Fusion. It's a card that we're of course going to play because it's a Red Eyes deck, so there wouldn't be any meaning of playing the deck without it. And thankfully there is a really good use with it, because the deck can search all the Red Eyes spells and traps very consistently, so we can go into Red Eyes Fusion for a follow-up play, not a starting play, so we can use Dragoon as the finisher of the deck. And of course we need to play one copy of Dark Magician for that same purpose. These cards being together pretty much in every deck now, that you're never going to see a Dark Magician deck without a Red Eyes, and vice versa, just because of how broken Dragoon is, so we need to play both these cards. Now the new card that we got in Maze of Memories, 3 copies of Red Eyes Soul. Now let's break this card down and see exactly what it offers for the deck. So first of all, this card becomes Red Eyes Black Dragon while it's on the field in the graveyard. If your opponent summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can send this card from your hand or field to the grave to special summon a Red Eyes monster from your hand or deck. And as a quick effect, you can target a Red Eyes Black Dragon you control, and you inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack. So this card is kind of like a hand trap, so you want to search this card, and during your opponent's turn when they commit to anything, you can use this card to summon your Gearfried from the deck, and when Gearfried is equipped to a card, maybe form a card mainly with Red Eyes Fang with Chain, then you can use its effect to pop it and pop another back row, or you can keep it for a follow-up as a revival play. So it kind of makes the plays with the equip spells more consistent, because that was something that Konami was intending with the deck to do, but they never really managed to make it consistent enough. But this card being able to summon Gearfried from your deck during your opponent's turn, while having your Red Eyes Fang with Chain set so you can basically have it ready to equip anything to your Gearfried, and then you can use Gearfried's effect as a follow-up. It gives some really good synergy between the cards that never really had synergy, because you were never going to normal summon Gearfried. There are so much better normal summons for the deck, but then you wanted to have the full value with a card like Red Eyes Fang with Chain. So yeah, this card fixes a lot of issues, and also gives you a way to be able to win in time without having to rely on a card like Inferno Fire Blast or something like that, because it's basically the same thing. As long as you get to the field, which is very easy to do so with cards like Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, you can burn your opponent and win like that. So yeah, this card is really good for the deck. Also, it's a level 7 monster, so you can use it for Xyz, and we do have some really good rank 7 Xyz monsters right now, because we're still in a Castira format, and you know that rank 7s are anywhere, so we can use them just as well as they can with cards like Diablosis and Big Eye, and we also have our signature monster as well, which can help us push for games. So yeah, Red Eye Soul, really good card, not nearly as good as Meteor Black Dragon, and once we get that card, the deck is going to become even better. Now let's move on to the rest of the cards that I decided to play in the deck. I was very skeptic on a lot of the Archetype cards like Alternative, I didn't really think it was good, so I added the cards that are actually good on their own, and they can do a lot of plays. So let's start with, of course, the best Red Eyes card, arguably, for a pure Red Eyes deck. We have 3 copies of Black Metal Dragon. This is the normal summon you're aiming to have pretty much every time. As long as you can see this card, you have a play going for you. This card on its own, not only is it a 1-card Heavenly Spheres, it can search you basically any card in the Archetype, and with cards like your Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, your World Legacy Guard Dragon, cards like Monster Reborn, you can use this card so many times because it's not a hard once per turn to search once it goes from the field to the graveyard, so you can basically search so many different cards. You can search Disruption with your Red Eyes Fang with Chain, you can search Follow-Up with your Red Eyes Fusion. It's an amazing card overall. Being a level 1 monster means that you can also play 1-for-1 in the deck to be able to tutor it out from the deck. So yeah, it's an amazing card. We have 1 copy of Darkness Metal Dragon. Now, even though this card is a 3, the errata makes it so that if you play more than 1 copy, then by seeing more than 1, you're not going to be able to do anything with them. You can special summon it with its effect once per turn, and you can use its effect once per turn. So it's something that you don't really want to see more than 1, and mainly you want to search with your Black Metal Dragon, because then you're going to banish the link monster you summon with your Black Metal Dragon. You're going to revive your Black Metal Dragon, going to something like a Romulus or a Heavenly Sphere, get another search, and you can see where this is going. This is pretty standard in any other Dragon Link type of deck. We have all seen what this combo can do. We have 1 copy of Gear Free the Red Eyes Iron Knight. This is a card we're playing mainly to summon from the deck with our Red Eyes Soul, because it's a card that gets more value when you equip one of your opponent's monsters onto it with your Red Eyes Fang with Chain, because then when a card is equipped to this card, you can pop the equipped card and you can destroy a back row on your opponent's field. Or if your opponent doesn't have a back row or you don't want to do it, if this card comes back to your turn with a card equipped to it, you can send an equipped card you control that's equipped to this card to the graveyard to target a level 7 or lower Red Eyes monster in your graveyard and special summon it, so it can give you an extender back when you get your turn to try to push for a game. So it's a really card altogether, but the problem with this card was that it was never a card you wanted to commit a normal summon for, so this is why a card like Red Eye Soul fixes this card's issues, because the card you're going to be normal summoning 99% of the time if you have it is Black Metal Dragon, so being able to summon this card from the deck makes a lot of sense now. We have 1 copy of Red Eyes Wyvern. This is a card you want to be sending to the graveyard with Red Eyes Insight to be able to get you some recovery in case you go into a grind game. This card is mainly going to be reviving Dragoon, but in this particular deck it can revive any kind of monster during the end phase as long as you don't normal summon anything. But yeah, Dragoon is the main target you're going to be looking for this card when you're trying to go into a grind game. Being able to revive Dragoon when your opponent doesn't have a lot of resources can be game ending on its own. Now let's move on to the more generic cards we have for the deck, because these are dragons and we have a lot of cards to look for. So there are some cards that I put in the deck, some other cards that I didn't. I will tell you exactly now which cards I didn't put. I didn't put the Rocket Engine in the deck because I felt like if I started to put like so many cards from a Dragon Link deck, then this deck wouldn't feel as a Red Eyes deck. It would feel like more a generic Dragon deck. And even though some people are going to say that this is not a Red Eyes deck and it's more like a Dragon deck, I try to put as many good Red Eyes cards as possible while not putting any bricks in the deck to still be able to make it somewhat viable, because there are so many Red Eyes cards that the more you keep putting in the deck, the worse the deck comes. So let's move on to the good stuff that we added to the deck to try to make it better. So first, we have 3 copies of Nocta Vision Dragon. This card is absolutely amazing, especially in Red Eyes, because it's a level 7 monster, so you can use it for Xyz as well. Mainly, you're going to be seeing this card linked away in other decks to be able to get a draw, which is something you're going to be doing in this deck a lot too, but being able to have a level 7 monster as an extender from your hand means that you can go into cards like Big Eye and Diablosis even more easily. So yeah, this card has amazing synergy with the deck. We have the Chaos Dragons. We play 1 copy of Black Dragon Collapse Serpent and 1 copy of White Dragon Wyver Buster. These cards are here mainly to give Chaos Space a purpose, because you can play a card like Levianeer if you want, but I feel like the deck doesn't really need some extra push with Levianeer because we have easy access to Dragoon by searching Red Eyes Insight and therefore Red Eyes Fusion. So I feel like these cards making the deck have more starters, because if you don't draw your Black Metal Dragon on 1-for-1, there is not something you can really do. So by playing Chaos Space, you basically give 3 more starters to the deck that can at least go for Heavenly Spheres, which is the bare minimum you want to aim for in pretty much every single game. If you can get Heavenly Spheres consistently, that's good enough for a start, and then you can start adding up more interruptions with cards like of course, we're playing Beastfields in the deck, or with cards like Red Eyes Fang with Chain and Masquerena if you manage to spam more monsters. So yeah, these cards help a lot with that as well. We play 1 copy of Tempest. Now, Tempest is a card that you don't usually see in Dragon decks, but because it's level 7, again for the same logic as Nocta Vision, it's a card that does get more value in a Red Eyes deck because of its level than in any other deck, because when you're trying to go for Link material, there are so many other cards that do it better, cards like Quick Launch and stuff like that, but being able to have the utility to be either Link or Xyz material gives the card more value than any of these other cards. So yeah, this card in this deck makes more sense. And of course, we have Bestials. I know that a lot of people are not really gonna like this particular part of the deck, but unfortunately, if you want to try to make this deck as competitively as possible, you need to play cards like this. If you're looking for a very casual deck, then this is not really the video for you. I'm sure there are other Red Eyes profiles out there that are way more casual than this, but I just always try to make decks as competitive as possible if there is a way to make them. And I feel like when you're dealing with dragons, there are a lot of ways to do it, even if the dragon archetype is not really that great on its own. So yeah, we're playing 3 copies of Bestial Magnamut. This card is amazing because not only is it going to give you an extender, but it's going to give you a search of pretty much anything, because when you're splashing Bestials as an engine in pretty much any other deck as hand traps, then of course you're going to be searching another Bestial with this card during the end phase, but in this particular deck you can search pretty much anything you want. So yeah, being able to search dragons is absolutely ridiculous. And I know Bestials are not really that great as hand traps anymore, because of course we are not in any Shizu tier format anymore, so your opponent is not going to have guaranteed light or dark monsters in the graveyard. But the thing with bestials in this particular deck, you're going to be using them during your own turn by banishing your own cards to be able to get more extenders on the board, going to rank 6 if you have multiples, or get their effects to be able to get, like, for example, more searches, more removal going second, or another interruption with Baldrake, which is a new addition because of the new set. So yeah, these cards offer so much to the deck, which is would basically be insane not to play them just because of how good they are. And even though they are not Red Eyes cards, their typing, their attributes, these cards were meant to be played in Red Eyes if they are not good hand traps in a particular form. We're playing 3 copies of Druiswurm. This card is the removal going second. When you link it away, you get to spot removal on any one of your opponent's monsters. And these cards being level 6, I wish they were level 7, but they're still a good level because if you draw more than one, you can overlay them into going into something like a Tomb, which can be used as an LP to summon anything from the deck. You can use Utopia Beyond with Zeus to going second, or you can use Wallow if you know it's going to be good interruption in the certain matchup you're playing against. So yeah, these cards, even though they're not level 7, which would be absolutely amazing for a Red Eyes deck, they're still good levels, and they're always link material if you wish them. And we're playing 3 copies of Baldrake. This is the best one for disruption because it's the only one that can do something when it stays on the field. Because, for example, if you draw just Druiswurm or just Magnamut, it's something that you want to link away as soon as possible, but Baldrake is a difference because it's a card that when your opponent summons a ritual, fusion, synchro, or Xyz, or link monster, you can banish them right away. So by tributing another light or dark monster. So yeah, this card gives you more interruptions, which is something that the deck desperately needs because we don't have that many good interruptions, especially inside its own archetype. Red Eyes Fang with Chain is basically the only interruption that Red Eyes have on their own if you don't count Dragoon, but the problem with Dragoon is that if you're summoning in turn 1, you won't be able to do anything else, and again, it would be decent if it had synergy with Red Eyes Fang with Chain, but unfortunately you can't target it, so you cannot even use that as a combo, so there's anti-synergy in the deck itself, so yeah, there's that as well. But yeah, this card gives you another interruption, it's a free special summon, and all of these cards, they're basically free bodies on the board, so they make a lot of sense to play in a deck like this. Moving on to the spell cards, we play 3 copies of Red Eyes Insight. You need this card at 3 to be able to search your Red Eyes Fang with Chain, and then you can use your search with Black Metal Dragon for your Red Eyes Soul to be able to summon your Gearfried during your opponent's turn, and as long as you have, for example, like a Heavenly Spheres on the field with a Red Eyes Fang with Chain set and Red Eyes Soul in your hand, that's basically the bare minimum you're trying to aim for because it's something that is going to give you a bounce with your Heavenly Spheres. You're going to float into a Red Eyes monster, so you can then use your Red Eyes Fang with Chain on it to basically equip one of your opponent's monsters on top of it, and then if your opponent has a backer on the field, then you can use your Red Eyes Soul to summon your Gearfried in order to be able to go into a backer removal effect as well. If your opponent doesn't have a backer, you can keep your Red Eyes Soul. It's not something that you really want to summon to use when your opponent isn't going for a backer because the monster you're summoning is most likely going to be destroyed. So sometimes just summoning the Red Eyes target for your Red Eyes Fang with Chain with your Heavenly Spheres is good enough. But if you know you're going to be using your Red Eyes Soul's effect for your Gearfried, then your Heavenly Spheres can float into something else, for example like a Magnamut to be able to get another search. So the deck does have a lot of ways to plus and a lot of ways to keep up in card advantage. We're playing 1 copy of Red Eyes Fusion. Now the reason we're playing only 1 is because again I mentioned that you don't really want to summon Dragoon turn 1. I mean, if you don't have anything else in your hand and you have just Fusion or Insight, then yes, of course you can go for it, but the moment you summon Dragoon, it's the moment you're going to have just Dragoon as an interruption because you are not going to be able to have anything else because you're going to lock yourself into not summoning anything for the turn. So yeah, this is not really a starter, it's more like a follow-up finisher for the deck. It's something that you can search very, very easily with a lot of cards you have in Black Metal Dragon. So when you disrupt your opponent with cards like your Masquerena, your Heavenly Spheres, your Red Eyes Fang with Chain, your Gearfried, then you can use this card to summon your Dragoon, clear the rest of your opponent's board, and attack for game. So this is why we only play 1 copy. It's not like in Dark Magician where we're trying to summon Dragoon, set a bunch of background and pass. I mean, you can do it if you want in Red Eyes as well, but I feel like if that's what you want to do, then you might as well play Dark Magician because it's much, much better at doing that. So that's why I didn't try to make this deck a Dragoon Turbo deck like some other profiles you see out there might. The rest of the spells is basically good stuff that we try to keep advantage going for anything else, and mainly because Black Metal Dragon is almost per turn, we can abuse some really good cards. So for example, we have 3 copies of our Legacy Guard Dragon, being able to not only revive Black Metal Dragon, when you link it away for a Peace Team, you're going to get another search, and then because of this card's secondary effect, you can use Peace Team in a different column, so you can use its effect with something like a Romulus on the field. You're going to bring back your Black Metal Dragon, and then you're going to link it away, and then you're going to get 3 searches in 1 turn. So opening this card with Black Metal Dragon gives you so much advantage. We have 1 copy of Monster Reborn, even though this card does not move Peace Team's columns, so you cannot use its effect very, very easily. It's a card that can give you a lot of plays, and it's a card that as long as you can get an extender out, Black Metal Dragon, it's always an extender plus a search, so it's a really good card. Even though it's not as good as World Legacy Guard Dragon, it's better in the grind game, yeah, but World Legacy Dragon does more because of being able to switch zones, but yeah, Monster Reborn does something really good as well. We're playing 3 copies of Chaos Space, being able to search our Chaos Dragons. Again, if you want, you can play Levianeer, but I feel like this deck's Levianeer is Dragoon, so you don't really need to play Levianeer because when you're going for the finish and you have Levianeer and Red Eyes Fusion, I feel like there's not a scenario where you would rather summon Levianeer than activate Red Eyes Fusion, and if you activate Red Eyes Fusion, you're not going to be able to summon Levianeer after that, so yeah, I don't feel like Levianeer makes a lot of sense when you're playing Dragoon. So yeah, this card is here mainly to be able to get our Chaos Dragons in our hand, get more starters, gives us extra draws, really good card. We're playing 1 copy of Dragon Ravine because we do have Romulus in the extra deck, it's very, very easy to summon, and because we can send Tempest to the graveyard to be able to get another level 7 extender of the board, so it's a good card as well. 1 copy of 1/1 to get access to Black Metal Dragon. It's a monster that if you can get to see, then you're going to get the most out of the deck, because if you don't have access to Black Metal Dragon, yes, you can still do the spamming part of the deck, but you're not going to have a hand afterwards, because you're not going to get a search every time you do that, so being able to have it as consistently as possible is the best way to go for the deck. And the only trap we play is 1 copy of Red Eyes Fang with Chain. It's a searchable trap card that can be used as disruption. You can target a Red Eyes monster you control, and you can equip it. It can make multiple attacks, and then you can target an effect monster on the field, and you can equip it to that target. So yeah, it's a card that basically equips any one of your opponent's monsters to one of your own Red Eyes monsters. So it's a card that when you combine with a card like Red Eyes Soul to summon Gearfried, again, it can be used as double disruption because you can pop one of your opponent's back row as well, maybe like a field spell or a continuous spell, or if your opponent has set up a board and you can use this card, pop one of their back row, or if you're playing a back row deck and maybe you can equip something like a Lady Labyrinth on top of your Gearfried to pop one of their back row. It can do a lot of different stuff, which is why I feel like Red Eyes Soul fixed a lot of issues with this type of disruption, because it was a singular disruption, but now with Gearfried it can potentially do more, either give you a back row pop, or you can use it as a revival effect during your own turn after. For the extra deck, we play 1 copy of Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. This card is the Archetype's boss monster, and it's a card that it doesn't really age well, to be honest, because it's a card that was meant to burn your opponent by summoning multiple copies, but it's not really easy to summon multiple copies, and even if you do, a card like Droplet or a Dark Ruler No More, or maybe like a Lava Golem, which a lot of people play right now, it can be a lot of painful for a card like this. But yeah, it's a card that you use to get another monster on the board because you can target a Red Eyes normal monster in your graveyard to special summon it by detaching a material. And it's a card that if you know your opponent is playing like a super combo heavy deck, and if they don't have an immediate out to this card, then they can burn themselves very, very quickly, because anytime your opponent activates an effect, they're going to get 500 damage. So it's a card that stacks a lot of damage on board, especially if you activate turn 1 the effect of your Red Eyes Soul to be able to burn your opponent with 24k. They're only going to have so many effects they can use if they don't have an instant out to this card. We're playing 1 copy of Big Eye because Big Eye is Big Eye. When you're playing rank 7 monsters, especially this particular format with rank 7s being pretty much everywhere in all the Kastira decks, you can use this card to steal some really good monsters, and it's a really good card all around in pretty much any matchup, so yeah, it's a really good card. We're playing 1 copy of Diablosis. Now, this card is very format dependent. As long as we're in a Kastira format, this card is going to be good, but if we change formats, then I don't feel like this card is going to be that incredible to be played. It would be an answer to the pot cards. That's the only thing that could be considered decent if we're not in a Kastira format. But again, we are in a Kastira format, so we can use this card very, very consistently to punish our opponents from banishing cards face down. For the rank 6 monsters, we have 1 copy of Atum. This is the New Age LP. In any deck that can play a lot of Bestials, and if it's a dragon deck, you can use this card to summon any dragon from the deck, so you can use it as a kind of a replacement for LP. It's obviously not the same thing, but it's something we can use, so we might as well. We're playing 1 copy of Wallow. If you know your opponent is playing a deck that is going to get hurt by a graveyard disruption effect like Wallow, then you can summon this card turn 1, and then if you have even more Bestials in your hand, you can use it as more of a safe-proof strategy to be able to basically disrupt your opponent without even needing to play the Red Eyes package of the deck, because yeah, with all these Bestials, it's not going to happen too often, but if you run into a matchup that is like Isuzu tier, that relies too much in the graveyard and has a lot of light and dark monsters, with all the Bestials in the deck, you can use them as really good hand traps along with Wallow to be able to just destroy them completely. We play 1 copy of Utopia Beyond. We need to be able to break boards somehow without having to rely too much on Dragoon, and this card is a really good way of doing so when you have a lot of Bestials, because you're going to turn all of your opponents and monsters' attack points to 0, and when you run over something, you're going to overlay into your 1 copy of Zeus, and then you're going to use Zeus effect to clear everything else. So yeah, this card is something that a lot of people have been playing with Bestials, and it makes a lot of sense. It's a card that you can summon very, very easily with a lot of Bestials in the deck, and it's something like your assembled Nightingale basically for the deck. We're playing 1 copy of Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Again, this card, you're not really aiming to summon this turn 1. You can summon it if you don't have anything else, but keep in mind, this is mainly the card you're going to be summoning when you get your turn back to be able to destroy your opponent's board, or what's left of it after you disrupt it with your cards, and then you're trying to go for game. And for the Link monsters, we have 1 copy of Striker Dragon. We don't play Boot Sector launch. You can if you want to kind of chain block your Black Metal Dragon, but I feel like playing one more brick in the deck in a deck that already has a lot of bricks, to be honest, doesn't really make that much sense, even though you sometimes really want to chain block your Black Metal Dragon in order to be able to get your search. But I feel like you have enough extenders to the point that even if your Black Metal Dragon gets asked, you can always have an extender with some like a Chaos Dragons or your Nocto Vision or something like that. Nocto Vision can chain block as well, so it's not like you really need that Boot Sector launch in your deck. We're playing one copy of Pisty. With War Legacy Guard Dragon, we can use its effect. If we don't have War Legacy Guard Dragon, it's going to be very, very difficult to use this card's effect because we don't play a card like Triple Burst. The deck is not spammy enough to the point of being able to do all these cool combos that Dragon Link can do. But again, with War Legacy Guard Dragon, it's very easy to do so. We play one copy of Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. This card is the main disruptor you're aiming for to summon turn 1, along with everything else. It's a card that is very easy to summon. It gives you a follow-up play by summoning something from the deck, mainly a card that is going to give you another search, either a Magnamut or a Black Metal Dragon, and yeah, it's a really good card. One copy of Romulus, because we do play Dragon Ravine, and there are some scenarios where you're going to summon a Heavenly Spheres, but you're going to be spamming a lot again, especially if you open War Legacy Guard Dragon, and because Pisty locks you into Dragon monsters, you can't go into something like Masquerena before you summon Romulus, so you might as well play Romulus because of the Dragon Ravine and Tempest in order to be able to get some restrictions out of the board and also get some more pluses. We play one copy of Masquerena. When you use this card along with Heavenly Spheres, you can then link it away with a monster you float with Heavenly Spheres to go into this one copy of Nightmare Unicorn right here in order to be able to get some more interruptions, which the deck desperately needs. The more interruption you can get with a deck like this, the better, because again, it's a deck that as an archetype on its own, it only has one interruption, so we need to be able to use the good stuff we have with Link monsters and dragons in general to be able to get as many interruptions as possible. And Masquerena Unicorn, this is nothing new. A lot of people play it in any other deck, so yeah, it's something we can use as well. And we also play one copy of Access Code Tucker because going second, you need to be able to spam a lot, and Dragoon is not going to cut it going second. Just Dragoon is very risky, A, because you can get ashed on your Red Eyes Fusion and that will be it, you won't be able to do anything else, but B, because just Dragoon is just not enough to be able to deal with a board on its own, so you need to be able to spam a lot of cards, being able to use effects to bait interruptions, go into Unicorn, bait another one, and then link climb into Access Code. You've all seen this before. It's a card that can just be the finisher you're looking for when you're going second. So yep, that's the deck, guys. Red Eyes have just got a power boost, and I feel like that when we get Meteor Black Dragon, the deck is going to become even better, because a Magician Souls type of card that is a level 7 monster that gives you so much freedom to be able to experiment with the deck more. It makes the deck more consistent, it makes the deck more viable to be able to go into rank 7s. Maybe the multiple flare Metal Dragon play is not going to be as like non-existent with a card like this, because the deck as it is right now, it's not something that I can consistently go for, but once we get that card, I feel like there will be a way to be able to go for that very consistently, and I'm looking forward to any new card that Konami releases for Red Eyes, because Red Eyes is just so iconic, so nostalgic. A lot of people love it, and I am one of them, and I just hope that the deck someday gets the support it deserves. So yep, that's the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and we'll see you next time.